Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us to the Hack the Cloud webinar. So my name is Amiram, and I'm CEO and one of the founders of Spotinst, and I will be moderating this webinar today. Thank you all for joining us. We have over 200 attendees for this webinar right now online with us today, so hi, everyone. What do we have here today? We have our great partners from Rancher and Packet.net. Having this amazing webinar with us. Let's say hello to Tenpa from Spotinst, to Chris from Rancher, and also to Tony from Packet. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you all for also joining. And today we're going to talk about this great winning combination between these three platforms from Spotinst, Rancher, and Packet. Actually, we've been working for almost 2 years together to deliver great stuff for cloud customers, as you can see. What we're doing very well is helping companies to run their containers workload on the cloud infrastructure, but saving them a ton of money. We're happy to have a lot of mutual customers like SunGard Availability Services and Demandbase, and also customer all over the world, Mission Mode from Germany, from the US, from APAC that are using Spotinst and Rancher together. And right now we would like to introduce you the new functionality of running all this winning combo across Packet data centers as well, which amazingly supporting Spot instances model. This is kind of like making history because Spot instances are used to be one of a kind of something that is being supported only within specific cloud provider. Only the major cloud provider has managed to deliver that functionality. And here we see Spot machines running on bare metal. So why don't I go and hand it over to our next speaker, which is going to be Tony from Packet. So Tony, I'm handing over to you the microphone, and good luck.
Thanks, Amaran. How's it going, everybody? Let me get those slides up. Okay. So how's it going, everybody? My name is Tony Perez. I'm an infrastructure engineer at Packet, and I will be talking about how we leverage containers on bare metal. For anybody who is new that doesn't know what Packet is, at Packet, we are a public cloud company leveraging bare metal servers. So we rent out bare metal servers on an hourly base. In our platform, we basically automate our infrastructure to give anybody the bare metal servers through an API or through portal. And the reason for this is because physical servers in general, getting them, racking them, and everything like that's pretty hard. So we automate all that with our tool, and we just give you an API to access all of this, all of these physical servers as needed. We are currently located in 4 data centers: Parsippany, New Jersey; San Jose, California; Amsterdam, Netherlands; and Tokyo, Japan. And if you wanted to learn more about our other features as well, and our different types of servers that we offer, just check us out at packet.net. Okay, so containers on bare metal. So at Packet, we run microservices. We've been running microservices since the start. And we needed a way, when we thought about using, how to deploy on our own, machines, we needed a way to, easily orchestrate all these containers. So some of the goals that we had were to, it needed to be easily bootstrap the server. We needed a great way to, get an overview of all the containers that we had. And in the end, all of this was so our developers can easily deploy, on the bare metal servers. So in our case, when I say bootstrap servers, so through we use our own, our own API and our own portal to deploy servers as needed, just like anybody else. But that's just the physical server part. So we automated that and we made it easy to, to get. But now we needed an easy way for, in our case, behind the scenes, to orchestrate all of the microservices that we had. So we've been using Docker containers from the start, and we were looking at different platforms, and we decided to use Rancher on top of our packet. So using both platforms, we got a lot of, there's a lot of performance boost, because now we didn't need to, since we don't offer hypervisors, although you can install a hypervisor, we didn't have a need for that. All we needed was a way to easily spin down and up containers as needed on our servers. And Rancher, we thought Rancher was a good fit for that. I'll be going through some of the really nice features of Rancher that I think works out for us, and hopefully everybody agrees. So one of the things is that in Rancher you can set up environments, and so an environment is just a way to group your different the different hosts. And so in our case, we group them by facility. So we have our microservices in all 4 of our facilities, so to spread the load and to be globally available. And this just provides a really good easy way to to group our servers into our different data centers. We can upgrade and downgrade as needed per facility. But the main thing I love about environments is that when we're troubleshooting, or we need to look at what's running on different facilities, because certain facilities might be unique, we sometimes just wanted to see what was on that server in a certain facility. So this we can safely upgrade. We can safely only upgrade to do some tests in SJC or in Amsterdam, or when we were deploying Tokyo, it was really easy to add the environment, because and just group it and see what was needed there. Another great feature that we like is hosts. So a host is just a way to add a machine to the container stack in Rancher. So what a host does in our case, we add our bare metal servers. We needed a way to tag the servers with this unique features. So in Rancher, they use labels, and through labels we can do things like in our case, we put what kind of server type it is. As in this an example, you can see it's a bare metal 2, so that's our type 2 server. We maybe wanted to include the rack information, the service it's running, and other things like that. So through and to add or remove hosts, it's pretty easy with Rancher. All you need to do was deploy the Rancher agent, and from there it basically bootstrap the rest of any other containers that you needed to run. And through labels, we can actually target using the labels. So that was a great feature. That's another great thing about this, is because besides targeting the environment, we can target per host. So in one of the things that we definitely liked is when we were deploying our monitoring stack. So we use Prometheus and Grafana for monitoring, and when we added a new host, for example, in our Web 1, when we wanted to add host metrics and container metrics and service metrics for that host, all we needed to do was add the label monitor true, and it automatically deployed the stack needed to monitor that host itself and anything on it. So that was a pretty good way. And another good thing about the labeling on a host is that when we needed to test out, in our case, when we launched our ARM servers, we needed a way to, we kind of wanted to test it out, but we wanted to include the saying that it's an ARM64, so things might, it was very unique, and when we were testing it, it was easy to target that. So in the end, at Packet, we leverage our own bare metal servers, and we provision them using our own API. But we needed something on top of that. We needed a way to orchestrate the containers. So, and that's why we chose Rancher, mainly because also it is also API driven. So both the front end, as you'll see later, you'll show their portal. They'll have a nice UI and everything like that for great quick view. But if you to automate things, you need an API, and it was all API driven. And so combining both our API and Rancher's API to deploy both containers and the Ranch agent itself, it was pretty easy, pretty seamless. This makes deploying new agents as new servers as needed, pretty quick and easy. We can turn it down, we can turn it back up, just like when you'll see in Spotinst's case. You'll need to be able to easily provision servers as needed, and then take and easily remove them. So this way, you're not always like consuming these servers. You only have them when you need it. And that is all I have for today. Thank you, everybody. You can reach me at tony@packet.net. My GitHub handle is PartCR5.
All right, Tony, thank you very much. Let's see if we have questions from the audience before we continue to the next session. We can get some questions. Let's see if we get something. All right. Not yet. So anyway, guys, we just shared with you over the chat a link to a web page, which we will be hosting during the webinar. In the end of that web page, you can add your name. And if you hit very hard and many times to this web page, your name will be shown during the demo in just a few moments. So feel free to do that. It's packet-rancher-webinar.spotinst.com. So feel free to do that. All right, we have a question for you, Tony. So we got a question. How many hosts maximum do you get for one environment?
I guess I never looked into the maximum amount of hosts, and I don't believe like maybe someone from Rancher can answer, but I don't believe there's any actual limit. In our case, we have, like in our New Jersey environment, we probably have right now, we probably had a maximum of like 10 physical servers. So.
Yeah, this is Chris from Rancher. We don't recommend really going above 50 hosts because it starts to get complicated, especially if you're using the IPsec overlay network, but it will scale above this. It just might have a slight slowdown effect on some of the inter-host communication, but we don't test really above that because we don't come up with people who are in environments that large. Yeah, I agree. So in our, like we don't have a need for that many servers in our case, especially, so like that's another good thing about like using our bare metal servers is that you can just get one of the beefy servers, and you don't need to have a bunch of VMs on there.
All right, great guys, thank you very much. And yeah, we're getting another question from Brian about getting the link for the resources. Yeah, we'll share that after the webinar. So, and we will share that with the links, and we'll send it over email to everybody. So we will send to in a few moments again the link for the web page, so you can put your name there and see your name during the webinar, and where the Rancher server is. That's a question from Frederick.
Sorry. I guess he's asking like where we host our Rancher server. Maybe that's it.
Probably the master server.
I guess assuming that's what the question was. So you can have it in the host itself, but in our case it's external. So we have both the Rancher and the Rancher database separate. We have it clustered in all of our regions, just for high availability. And then in our case, we also have our lab environment completely separate from our Rancher, from our production Rancher environment. So, just to, for testing purposes when we want to test upgrades or anything like that.
All right, great. So do we have a last question here from Gregor? How many environment on one master do you have?
Oh, in our case, so we have 5. We have 4 for each facility, and we add them, every time we get a new facility. And then we have another one for like miscellaneous stuff. And then another one for lab. So I guess 6.
That's great. All right, Tony, that's a great session. Thank you very much. That looks very interesting about what you guys are doing with Rancher. So why don't we welcome the next speaker, which is Chris from Rancher, to give us a brief from the Rancher point of view. And so, Chris, the microphone is all yours.
Thank you very much. Hi, my name's Chris Irwin. I'm a technical lead for Rancher Labs, currently working out of the UK. And I'm going to give you sort of a little bit of an overview of containers and a little bit of information about what we do at Rancher and what products we have. Okay, so it's fair to say that containers aren't going anywhere. They've come along in the last 4 years. I think Docker's birthday was last month rather, and they're growing massively. Enterprises that we're going into are seeing a huge demand from the development community within these organizations to consume containers and start running their production instances on them, and it's all because of the speed at which you can develop and deploy. It's a lot quicker than doing it via sort of the typical virtual machines and bare metal. So the fact of the matter is, running containers in production, it isn't easy. There's a lot of things that you have to orchestrate, a lot of things that you have to think about when you're doing this. When you're moving into a containerized world, things change significantly from when you're running them in a sort of a virtual network. So with this high increase in the sort of rate of change, then there comes a need for you to be able to control these things in a more effective way. And what you've got is you've got all of these little components that you need to orchestrate together, and basically this is where you need a container management platform, which is what we do. So Rancher Labs have 3 sort of primary software offerings at the moment. We've got Rancher Server, which is what we're talking about today, which I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about. We've got Rancher OS, which is our own Linux distribution. As it says there, it's built from containers for containers. It was primarily built just to run containers. It doesn't do anything else. It's tiny. It runs in current guise at the moment. It's 40 meg implementation, and adopting this purely because it's very, very small and it's got a very low attack surface because there isn't a lot running it. Project Longhorn is one of the things that we publicized a couple of weeks ago, and it's an open source project for distributed block storage, which allows you to run a container and basically have the storage follow it between other servers. So it gives you some of that. It's trying to solve the persistence problem that you get when running containers. Rancher, the management platform, is basically a great way of running containers in production. It's an enterprise-ready system that allows you to scale your containers, manage your containers, manage applications, have health checks. As you can see, we've got 20 million plus downloads. It's really, really popular. We've got a lot of people using this already. It's got a great UI. We've got a lot of people using the UI, and it also has a fantastic API. The API is just as powerful as the UI. Everything you can do via the UI, you can do via the API and more. It has multi-tenant, it has role-based access, and we offer, we're an open source company, and we basically make money by offering support for this product and supporting you in running your containers in your production environment. The question comes down to, do you want to run all of this stuff and have to manage and orchestrate all of these things, or do you want to run Rancher Server? Rancher can control all this stuff for you, and it makes running production things very, very easy. So this is Rancher like at level. The way that Rancher works is you bring along some compute resource, and we manage that compute resource for you and basically control how your applications, where your applications sit according to some rule sets. So at a high level, this is what Rancher does. So I'm going to go through each one of these very briefly. We do have a YouTube channel where you can get a lot more information on what we actually do, what the product does, and we have deep dives into a lot of these areas. But what we have is we have an application catalog, which is basically a bunch of predefined containers and links that allow you to very, very quickly spin up a full working stack. So we've got in there a Prometheus example that basically spins up all of Prometheus and Grafana and InfluxDB and everything else that it needs to do it, which you can basically deploy with a single click. We are open source, and we're the only open source orchestration platform that allows you to use Kubernetes, Docker, and so have our own orchestration. We have enterprise features around RBAC. We can plug into Active Directory for authentication. We can plug into LDAP for authentication. You can plug into GitHub. So again, we're providing features that enterprises want. They don't want the burden of having to administer additional things. They want to just link to a group and allow that to give access to these services. We provide a bunch of infrastructure services for you. So we take care of storage, so we can mount NFS shares automatically for you. We take care of the networking, so we provide an IPsec overlay network, which ensures that all of the communication between your network nodes hosts is encrypted. We also have a pluggable architecture on this, so that you can bring your own CNI compliant network and basically write a driver to integrate into Rancher. We have our own internal DNS and metadata service that you can query, and we also provide a load balancer to allow you to do SSL termination on the edge of your container environment. And basically you can do URI-based routing or rule-based routing to determine how to forward the information that you get at your front edge into the containers that are available. So the environment piece is basically an environment to us is an administrative boundary, and what that allows us to define is you can determine a particular bunch of users and a particular bunch of compute resource. So compute resource to us is a bunch of servers. Where those servers come from, we don't mind. We're completely agnostic, but obviously things like Packet and sort of other major providers that are out there, we have the ability to be able to provision their servers directly from within the Rancher UI. And when you provision them from within the UI, what that allows you to do is basically we take over the complete management and life cycle of that server. So when you delete it from the UI, you destroy a server, we actually go away and we will destroy it within Packet for you. So you don't need to interface to anyone else, do all by the machine. So within this administrative boundary, we have a concept of stacks. Within a stack, can define a bunch of services that can talk to each other, and we also have network isolation will ensure that only the things that the stack is allowed to talk to, so other stacks within an environment, you can define rules as to which stack can talk to which other stacks. Okay, so Rancher, Spotinst and Packet. So one of the things that Spotinst do and Packet can do is they can interface to our API. So in the combination of these three, Rancher can take care of the container orchestration, while Spotinst takes care of the infrastructure provisioning and basically provisioning those servers and adding them into the Rancher server. What Spotinst also sort of take care of is the removal of those services. So when you're running within a Spotinst environment, they can then ensure that the removal is done via an API call to us to tell us that host no longer exists, and we can move the containers from a particular instance that's running onto other instances. So this allows us to basically maintain the business continuity. So with a combination of our balance front of the services, we can ensure that your service is spread across multiple instances and ensure that your service stays up when you have an outage on a host, and when a new host comes in, we can then migrate these services. Excuse me. We can then migrate the services across to these additional hosts. So that's all I really want to go into, because I know the guys from Spotinst are going to be doing a demo for us. But for Rancher, you can go to try.rancher.com, and basically we host a UI that you can then bring along your own compute resource to and sort of try us out. You can download us from Docker Hub. Like I say, we're open source. You can just do a Docker run of our Rancher server container. And there's lots of information on our rancher.com website, links to documentation. And like I said, the YouTube channel has a lot of information as well. So please feel free to just jump in and have a play.
That's great. Thank you very much, Chris. We will open the session right now for like 2 minutes for questions, and then get ready for a very, very cool demo of Spotinst, Packet, and Rancher together. So we do have a question from Brian from the last session, which is, has anyone tested with Contiv for network plugin with Cattle or Kubernetes?
I'm not aware of anyone, but that doesn't mean that it hasn't been done.
Yes, I will. I have not tested that, but I will say, Rancher does have the ability. Like, it's pretty nice because it lets you, either use their own networking, so that in case, like, Chris was saying, like, they have IPsec tunneling for each host to host and container to container communication, but you can plug in your own. So I wouldn't see why that wouldn't work.
All right, we have two other questions. First question is, how do you configure the network, like using Rancher to manage a DNS container?
Not quite sure I understand the question fully, but with the network, when you deploy an environment, what happens is you can choose what sort of network you're going to have. So like I say, out of the box, we provide an IPsec overlay network. We also provide a VXLAN driver to allow you to plug into a VXLAN. I'm not really sure what the DNS question bit was about.
All right, thank you. And last question right now in this session, coming from Alan James, asking, is it currently possible to play around with Rancher on ARM architecture, like on a cluster Raspberry Pis?
It certainly is. So we have, I believe we've got a build of Rancher server that runs on ARM, and we also provide an image of Rancher OS that runs on the Raspberry Pi as well.
All right. Great. So we'll keep some more time for questions in the end of the session. Now get ready for the next session and the next speaker, which is Tenpa, our solutions architect from Spotinst. So Tenpa, the microphone is yours.
Great. Thanks, Amram. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, great. So hi, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today for this webinar. My name is Tenpa Kunga, and I'm a solutions architect here for Spotinst. So far you've heard from Tony over at Packet and Chris from Rancher regarding how to utilize running your container infrastructure on bare metal instances. And I know Chris did touch a little bit on how Spotinst ties those two services together. So essentially, Spotinst is a breakthrough technology that allows you to save anywhere from 50 to 80% on your cloud server costs. We're cloud agnostic. We're really proud about that as well. Our technology allows our customers to save money without having to worry about the details and the pitfalls of using Spot instances. So Spotinst is a SaaS platform that allows you to take advantage of the steep compute savings by provisioning servers that are deemed as excess capacity for different cloud vendors. This excess capacity can be had for about 50 to 80% off the list price or on-demand price, but your cloud vendor can terminate these instances at any time without warning. So Spotinst Elastic Group is our cluster technology that allows you to provision Spot instances with 100% availability. So think of an Elastic Group as an auto-scaling group that allows you to provision Spot instances without the downside of using the spot market. Spotinst is using historical market data, analytics, and a predictive algorithm to give each spot market a score. So a low score means that supply for a particular instance is high. In demand, and therefore the capacity available has fallen. A high score means that the market is primed for provisioning. We will provision instances from an expensive spot to a lower price spot automatically. So essentially, if you have something that's too expensive, we'll move it to something less money. We're also mitigating the risk of using spot by automatically provisioning those to preemptively before they're actually interrupted. Oops, sorry. So here's a screenshot of the AWS spot market. I would have shown this for Packet, but I don't believe there is some kind of history available in the console currently. So here's just a screenshot from AWS. But as you can see, there's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of things that you have to consider. And basically, it's complicated. This is complicated stuff. There are a lot of factors you have to consider when using Spot instances, and therefore a lot of consumers, a lot of cloud users, DevOps engineers choose not to use them. There's really no benefit, if there's a lot of worry, you have to worry about it up at night, that the instance is up and running or not. So here at Spotinst, our core competency is managing Spot instances. You can use our platform to take advantage of this huge cost savings without having to worry about losing an instance, or if an instance is running for too much, for basically over the list price. So here you can see a screenshot of our spot market scoring system. This system takes a look at all the spot instances available and provides a score for each market. Just let us worry about the details of running spot so you can focus on your applications. So I know, again, Chris did touch upon a little bit about how we're able to tie in Rancher and provisioning on bare metal instances on Packet. So, so let's just go into a little bit of how we're able to tie this together. So first of all, you define your Rancher host configuration, things like which image to use, the data center, and the user data scripts to run in order to register your Rancher host to the master. These instances will then be launched as bare metal servers at the Packet.net data center. If a spot instance is too expensive, we'll automatically replace it with a different spot instance of a different type or a different data center. So if no spots are available for replacement, we'll provision a regular price instance on your behalf so you have the capacity needed to run your applications. Spotinst will even make an API call to Rancher to deregister instances that would be replaced. So you can see here we're actually replacing a spot instance with an on-demand instance. And whatever artifacts were left over from the instance that was replaced, this old spot instance will actually automatically be cleaned up by Spotinst making an API call to your Rancher master. So now my favorite part, the live demo. And since today's Star Wars Day, I thought it would be a good idea to send a prayer up to the light side of the Force for a successful demo. I'm one with the Force is with me, and one with the Force is with me. And I think you guys already got in the chat the link to our demo site, our live demo website that we have up and running. So you can see here, if you go to the link in the chat, you should be able to enter a different path. So here I've just entered May the 4th be with you, be with you. So if I hit refresh, it should automatically change our round robin to different hosts that I have to my load balancer. If I look at my Rancher configuration, you can see I have 3 Rancher hosts up and running, running my containerized application. And also if I go to my Packet console, you can see that I have my 3 instances running on bare metal at Packet. And you can actually notice, I don't know if any of you are already Packet users today, if you provision instances on via Spotinst, an actual little icon will appear, as you can see, so notifying that that particular instance is being managed by us. So now that you've seen my demo website, let's go ahead and try to break it. Which is usually a part where I need to have that prayer. So let's go ahead. I'm using, so right now, I'm using Postman to modify the Elastigroup that I have configured. So right now it's target size equal to 3. I'm gonna go ahead and change that to 1. Okay, so that was successful. So I'm gonna go ahead and switch over to Rancher, and as you can see, Rancher automatically sees that those 2 instances that were removed, since I had 3 and I changed it to 1, were automatically being deregistered from the master Rancher. Sorry, the Rancher master. And also, if I go over to Packet, you'll see these will eventually will have 3 and will go down to 1. But if I go to my web application, since this is load balanced, it should have no problem with refreshing the page here. Great, so my web application is still up and running. And I actually want to show you a little bit, some stats from our load balancer as well. But before I do that, I'm going to go ahead so you can see that this is now down to 1 instance. If I refresh my Packet page, you can also see that we've moved from 3 instances down to 1. So I've successfully terminated 2 of those instances. So in the interest of time, I'm going to go ahead and change the target back up to 3. So we'll provision 2 brand new instances for this cluster. And I'll send that. So if I refresh this page in a little while, I should see those 2 new instances added. Eventually, also these 2 inactive instances will be cleaned up for us. So I just want to show you a little bit about our configuration via Postman. Since we are API first, I figured it'd be easier to just show you a configuration. So a Spotinst Elastigroup is configured via a JSON file. So you can see here in the JSON, it's all configured, all the fields are configured. So for example, the capacity size, the strategy. So you can actually define, I want to have, let's say, for example, 50% on demand and 50% my instances to be spot. Also the operating system, the user data, the tags that you want to define. If you want to diversify the different instances, so you can have bare metal 0, bare metal 1, bare metal 2, and also in different data centers. So we'll provision these instances for you automatically in diversifying the spot markets that are available. Also further down here in the integration section, you can see for Rancher, we've configured our master host and also an API key to ensure that our API calls to the Rancher master are letting us do things like adding hosts and removing hosts gracefully. Also, if I look at the packet costs, I can actually see via API what my cost savings is like. So I know these are fairly small instances. They're the type 0 instances, but I can see, I believe I'm saving somewhere around 50% on my cost right now. So let me just switch to the endpoint. So you can see this is the potential cost. So it's actually around 10 cents an hour for running the type 0 bare metal server, but I'm actually only paying 6 cents an hour. And then here, this other one, it looks like we're only paying 3 cents an hour. So as you can see, this is pretty excellent savings. So this is the smaller instance type. If you were to further diversify this cluster, I would actually see probably even better savings. So again, like we were saying, anywhere from 50 to even up to 80% cost savings over the regular list price. Let's see, let's switch over back to Rancher. Now I should see if I refresh this, the 2 instances that were there that we previously spun down are now cleaned up. Now I'm just waiting for those 2 new Rancher hosts to come up within Packet. So let's see how that's going. This will, of course, take a few minutes for those new instances to be provisioned and bootstrapped. So great, so they're still yellow. So while we're still waiting for those 2 instances to come up and become live, previously I know Amiram in the chat sent a message about how to add a different target for the load balancer itself. So you can have, like, for example, I've set this to May the 4th be with you. So if we look at our load balancer, if I refresh this, I should be able to see different traffic sources by people here in this webinar that have been so it looks like BioBam has had over a pretty incredible close to 16,000 requests just in the last half an hour. So that's great. Possibly scripted somehow. So that's great. Thank you for helping us try to break the demo. It's excellent. And some additional ones. So with this load balancer, we can see great statistics like the metrics request by path, the geographical source. So for here, so for our demo today, we have people from, let's see, over 10 separate countries. You can see in the geo map where the traffic source is coming from. So that's great. So let me go ahead and refresh this page and make sure that we're still up and running. So great, so no problem so far. And again, I'm just gonna check on Rancher, and it looks like, yeah, I think it's still gonna take another minute or 2. So perhaps what we can do now is just, Amiram, maybe we could just switch the questions while we're waiting for this 2 new hosts to come up in live. Hi, Amiram, are you there?
Yeah. That's great. Thank you very much, Tempa, for the demo. So I hope everybody enjoyed that demo. Let's open the session right now for a couple of questions from the audience. So feel free to ask whatever you want, guys. So we do have a question from the last session for the Rancher guys, I believe, from Brian. They would appreciate info about how to use Rancher DNS and Contiv plugin. So that's for the Rancher guys.
Okay, yeah, I would suggest going to the forums, which is forums.rancher.com, and raising a question on there. I don't know off the top of my head, but someone, other community member or one of the Rancher team will definitely reply.
All right, that's great. Another question is, do you need to select a specific cloud vendor ahead of time for your Spotinst account? And if so, what is the best supply or lowest cost? Tempa, do you want to take this?
I'm sorry, what was, sorry, I was like tending to my demo here. I believe the question was, what will happen if an instance is replaced?
No, the question was, do you need to select a specific cloud vendor ahead of time for your Spotinst account? And if so, which has the best supply and lowest cost?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yes. So again, like I said earlier, we are cloud agnostic. So we do support Packet.net, AWS, and Google, and soon to be Azure as well. So which cloud vendor to choose, that's completely up to you. As you guys have learned in this webinar today, obviously running containerized applications on bare metal instances, I think, is just amazing. And it's kind of interesting because we're going back from we've gone from bare metal to virtualization and the containerized applications. So it makes sense to kind of remove the middleman and remove the overhead if you're running containerized applications and get rid of the hypervisor altogether. But if you want to know who has the most capacity, I think most people would agree that Amazon probably has the largest capacity since they are the largest cloud vendor today.
Yeah, so just to add a little bit more in that, so Ben, we operate right now across Packet, AWS, Google, and Azure. We do see a lot of free compute capacity available for everybody on AWS, but also on Packet. Very soon we'll be launching our Azure offering, so that's going to be also great. And I see also a question in the chat about running Rancher across clouds. And yes, this is something that you can do together, tie Spotinst with Rancher and get these capacity from each cloud, because Rancher is also very agnostic. So that's great. And another question is, how can I use this load balancer? So for the ones who ask that, so you can go to multi.io /sign up or console.multi.io. We'll share that link over the the chat. I'll send it in a few moments. Tempa, you can add some words about the load balancer if you want, while I'm getting the other questions.
Yeah, so Multi is our brand new hybrid load balancer. This also is cloud agnostic. You can actually run Multi on-prem. The nice thing about the fact that it's hybrid is our console is is hosted by us. So the console itself, managing API keys, configuring DNS, etc., is all configured by our console on Spotinst and our Multi load balancer. All you need to do on your end is run, or basically install runtime nodes. So your runtime nodes. So here, if I click on this, I can have runtime nodes running on Azure, Google, Packet, and let's say my own VMware infrastructure on-prem or at my data center. And then you can deploy those applications globally, multi-cloud, at one DNS endpoint. So it's pretty amazing. And I like you guys saw earlier in our demo, we're able to track, kind of sophisticated things that you wouldn't normally be able to see in, like, let's say, Elastic Load Balancer, like metrics by path, geographic, refer URLs, all these types of things. I can even go into these metrics. So we have really nice metrics that you can see via our console as well.
Yeah, that's great. Another question from Mohit is, what will happen if spot capacity is exhausted for one type of instance, per se M4 large, in that case of AWS? So yeah, Tempa, go ahead.
Yeah. So essentially what you're doing, and going back to my slides here, sorry for switching around. Essentially what you're doing is configuring a heterogeneous cluster. So you can do that in Packet as well. So this is AWS, but you can do that in Packet. So you could have multiple data centers like EWR in Northern California, for example, multiple instance sizes like bare metal 0, bare metal 1, bare metal 2, what we're going to do is look at those available markets. So here we're showing you in this the screen here, which ones have the best price, essentially. Best price, best availability. We're going to give each of those markets a score. And then let's say, for example, M4XL in East 1A is twice the on-demand price. We're going to switch that to a different AZ, or let's say even a different instance type in a different AZ as well. So we can, since we have this predictive algorithm and we have this spot scoring, we're able to flip those to the best possible cost and availability. And then worst case scenario, if all of these spot markets go sky high, they're too expensive to run, or there's risks of losing all of those instances, we'll switch those to regular on-demand list price instances for you. And that's all automated for you. It's essentially, like I was saying earlier, it's something you don't have to worry about, something you have to think about.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much, Tempa. So yeah, basically, yeah, that's great. Thank you, Mohit. That was a good answer, Tempa. So Brian is asking for multi. Can you manage stickiness and other LB things? What about JWT inspection or routing capabilities? So for that, I'll take that question. So with multi, yeah, you can manage stickiness. You can define either kind of like cookie-based stickiness and make sure you're being routed to the same host. Other LB things, yeah, you have any routing algorithm that is available on any load balancer that you know, whether if it's disconnection, round robin, random, or whatever. About JWT inspection, yeah, we do support that. We support it as a built-in module, or you can add your own custom Lua scripts to it. With regards to routing capabilities, you can route traffic either based on headers, so you can set specific headers, or you can set it based on URLs. For example, for specific URLs or regular expression to route to specific host or specific pool of hosts, and based on different headers to do it to different hosts. So you can do like a regression testing on your production while you're deploying new versions. That's a great use case with multi. Yeah, great.
And Amram, if you don't mind, really quick, I just want to go, I know I took a pause from my demo. I just want to go back because just to kind of recap, so essentially what I did earlier was I changed my cluster size for my Rancher cluster from 3 hosts to 1. And you saw that those 2 instances that were there that were terminated were automatically cleaned up. And then I switched that cluster size back to 3. So I'm trying to simulate a spot interruption, essentially, or basically a replacement. So you can see now it's been a couple minutes. My 2 new Rancher hosts are up and live. They've been added back to the cluster. They're already registered. They actually have my demo application up and running now. So again, if I go back to my load balancer, my load balance application, I hit refresh, it's still up and running. Might have to do a hard refresh to get the hosts to update. But essentially, the fact is the 2 new Rancher hosts are automatically managed by us and replaced. In the case of a expensive spot instances, that would all automatically be done for you.
All right, great. Thank you, Tenpa. Thank you. Seems like the gods of the demo were with you. So I'm super happy for that. I hope everybody enjoyed the webinar. We will leave some more room for a little bit more questions. Maybe if you guys have more questions to the Rancher and the Packet guys. So Chris, Tony, anything from you guys? Feel free to share right now.
No, I just want to say thanks, Tempa, for the awesome demo. I thought it was pretty good. It really showed off some of the things. So in our case, we don't, I guess we don't have to use Spotinst because we use our own, our own pricing since it's free for us. But I really am glad you showed off the whole thing put together because using this model, you can automate this. So you can, put your workloads and compute as needed. And with Spotinst and Rancher, you can just, it's automated even further and make it also cost effective.
Yeah, I'll second that. I think it's a great way of showing how these sort of newer technologies have come together to solve these problems in a really inventive way. And I think it shows the flexibility of the sort of the whole Docker ecosystem going forwards. So really good demo.
Yeah, indeed. So thank you very much, guys, for joining. I think that we saw here amazing demo, not just because it was Tenpa, which is doing a great job, but also because I think this is the real promise of the cloud. The real promise of the cloud really means that I can get resources from wherever I want, and I can pay demand and supply-based pricing. And with a great orchestration platform that manages the containers and a great infrastructure provider, I think that we can just create amazing performance and amazing cost savings while not sacrificing any of our application availability. So thank you very much, guys. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Tony. Thank you very much, Tenpa. Thank you all for attending. We had an amazing run rate with online viewers. So I hope that everybody really liked that. We will share the links. We'll share the also URLs for the slides and also recording very shortly. And thank you very much, guys. See you in the next webinar.